Good morning, folks, and welcome to this week's edition of the Elevenses, brought to you by the Google Partners team. My name is Huey de Zulueta. I'm an account strategist here on the UK agency team. Joining me today is my colleague.
Hi, my name is Michael McLaughlin. I'm also an account strategist on the UK agency team.
Now, folks, for those of you who aren't aware, today is International Paranormal Day, a celebration of all things mystic and unusual. And one such thing is the Smart Display campaign, the latest release in the AdWords automation suite of products. And it's a campaign where you can set the display automation from start to finish, minimum input from you as a marketeer, maximum performance. Before we step on, Michael, the paranormal, have you ever experienced it? UFOs?
Not really.
Poltergeists? I've had a few instances, but I'm not going to share them. It's a little bit sensitive. But folks, if you have, please leave a comment in the YouTube link below. Let us know your experience of that. Without further ado, though, smart display campaigns, what are they? How do they fit in? How can they benefit you? And really, if you've been with us the past few weeks, you will have been part of this Elevenses automation series. A few weeks ago, we did smart bidding. Then we looked at dynamic search ads. And today, it's smart display campaigns. All of those other recordings are up on the Google Partners page there, the live stream. Please feel free to catch up with them after this. And actually interesting, if you looked at our Q1's earning call the other day and you heard Sundar Pichai, our CEO, he gave machine learning a particular shout out and said, and actually the benefits it's giving to our advertisers on a daily basis is massive. And so I think that's really been one of our big bets in 2017 and beyond. And so it's really this series about bringing you as marketeers up to speed on how you can harness that. And so on display, how do we get here? What's the benefit and why is this a necessity to automate and use machine learning in our display activities? And really, Michael, I think it brings me on to this. And it's a question we've heard about search, and it's a question that resonates with display. How manageable is the GDN? How manageable are your display campaigns? I mean, when you take into account all the audience targeting you can do, similar audiences, remarketing, affinity audiences, then the placements you're serving on, looking at devices, locations, ad schedule time, it's an incalculable sum. It's so difficult to understand where you're serving, how you're serving, what's the most impactful way to serve. And also to cut through the noise. Every day, tens of billions of ads are served across the GDN on, I think it's over 3 million websites now and apps that are part of the Google Display Network. So how do you be relevant? How do you be impactful? How do you as a business show the right message at the right time to the right person? We've heard that a million times. Yep. But how can we use programmatic in AdWords? How can we use that automation? Cue smart display campaigns, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing here really is it is fresh off the press. The information is there. If you go to our Inside AdWords blog last week, you'll read about introducing display campaigns, the best practices that you can use around those and how you actually set those up. So the information is there. It's fresh off the press. It's the one thing that we're trying to push at the minute because it is being so effective for advertisers. I think the one stat, Huey, which stands out more than anything is in terms of how easy is it to set up? How can you actually, is it hard? Is it complicated to do? And I think there are three main points here that, in terms of the basic setup around it. One is auto bidding. So you will set the bid in terms of target CPA. There will be other, types of bidding coming around the corner, but at the minute,
maybe target ROAS, maybe ECPC, but not for now.
Not for now. Just for now, it is just target CPA. Hugh, you did talk about the different types of targeting. It will become auto targeting. It is machine learning. So there will be more, the signals will work itself out and you will be able to become a lot more effective through auto targeting. And then the final step is around auto creatives. And we will go into a little bit more information about that, but it is kind of raw creative assets and building those unique ads as well.
And I guess what comes across here is three things. It's been the message throughout the automation series: simplicity, control, and performance. Yeah, those are the three messages really, and I think clearly that demonstrates it here. And actually, Michael, it also reminds me a lot of universal app campaigns, the so-called set and forget, the plug and play, the raging Cajun UAC.
Leave it go.
That was one of the great products releases of the last 5 years, you say, and this seems similar, would you say?
Yeah, I think it is obviously something where you can set it up and leave it go, but we would encourage you to try and go in there, tinker with it.
That ongoing optimization.
Exactly. And we would always say that about that. But you saw the success of the universal app campaigns. We realized some people, especially with clients and stuff, don't have that much time to do it. So, this is a perfect solution for that.
What's the headline stat for you? I know you like big numbers.
I do like big numbers. I suppose the headline stat really is around, the 20% increase in conversions at the same CPA. And we're looking at this as an average. Yeah. We will go into certain examples around big brands that have used this and we've seen better results. But what we've seen on average really is a 20% increase in conversions at the same CPA. I suppose the thing, QE, before we kind of look at anything different, it is we are comparing it to similar display campaigns. Okay. We're not comparing it to your search campaigns or your higher upper funnel activity. It is to other kind of display campaigns.
Sure. So that's those mid to low funnel display campaigns.
Exactly.
Worth reminding you here, folks, this product has been in beta for some time. We've been testing it with advertisers, so we do have a good amount of data to draw on that.
Exactly.
But take me on, just unpiece a little bit. What actually are the elements we need to put in?
So again, 3 basic elements, and it is something that, is this going to take a day? Is this going to take 2 days to set up? No, it's really, really simple to set up. 3 basic elements, as I mentioned. Target CPA, so you will set your target CPA. You'll add your campaign budget, and then you look at your landing page and your raw creative assets. So it's really, really simple, 3 basic steps, and you'll have your campaign set up in 5 to 10 minutes.
Am I right in saying your personal record for setting up one of these is 3.5 minutes?
Yeah, we'll say 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's also worth minding there is a lot of control in here, and obviously for the whole industry at the moment, the whole safety and control and placements is front of mind. You can do site category options with this campaign. You can decide what placements your ads show on as well. So that's part of the whole offering. Yeah. And then just taking this into a little bit more about the creatives, because that's, I find, one of the more interesting aspects.
Yeah, and I think what people get worried about creatives and when they're setting up, will it just be that one square ad? And, will that be responsive to, a mobile phone, a tablet, a computer, a certain website, of course. So yes. There is nearly 1 billion combinations. And in terms of the actual setup itself, you have your headline, which in this example will be Credit Karma, and that will come up, on the top of the ad, as you see on the left-hand side. Yeah. You'll put in your description, and we will kind of go into more detail around the description, the best practice around the certain descriptions that you should use a little bit later on. And then very simply, you just put in your display URL. So, it's again, those 3 basic steps just to ensure that creative is there.
So if we did want to do a simple setup as quickly as possible, it's literally a couple of inputs of text. You can then scan your website, get your logo, get your images, and then it'll give you all those different combinations, and it will find out which one resonates best with the right person at the right time, all that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Very easy to do. And so just unpiecing it a little bit more, we speak about the targeting, the auto-targeting, automation, what's actually going on under the bonnet, under the hood of this Ferrari F7, what is going on? And it's mid to lower funnel targeting, really. And by that, I mean, it's the best of keyword contextual, the best of topics, the best of placements, but also heavily relies on audience targeting. So similar audiences in market audiences, your audience lists as well, people who visit your site. It's going to be drawing on all of those to give you a really high performing display GDN campaign.
And you're looking at all these different ones and what's going to perform better. And this is the whole point around machine learning, is that it's going to work out and has all those signals now in place. And I think you're talking about primary, your remarketing lists, your audience lists. So hugely, hugely important.
And I think this is really exciting for those performance advertisers who traditionally have just stuck to search or shopping. This for me would be a really exciting way to say, right, let's go into display, but in quite a sort of safe way where you're being really high performance, still mid to lower funnel, still consideration intent phase you're targeting, but just a good way to go into that area.
Completely.
And so moving on there, you spoke about simplicity. Take us through the actual construction.
So it's very similar to setting up a display campaign, which you would have done in the past. So you would go plus display campaign. Obviously, the main goal of these campaigns is to drive more conversions. So in the drive action piece there, you will click buy on your website, which will include remarketing, and a smart display option will appear underneath. In this case, you will just simply click create a smart display campaign. So it's very, very easy to set up.
Fantastic. And so in the campaign types, in AdWords, you'd select display campaign and then, okay.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And then what you come into next is your ad creation. And I think we discussed this around having control over this and having the ability to change this. So you'd be given the option to put in your headlines, to put in your descriptions, and obviously put in your URL. Now there's two options here, Hughie. Obviously you can scan your website and it'll automatically create it and your logo will appear, or you can upload your own images, you can change your images, so there is options here. It'll also give you, the specs needed. So if you don't have the image in the right size, it'll prompt you to change that as well.
And what I love about this creative sort of setup is that it gives you instructions. It will say, the advised pixel size, the advised size of the images, should you have a blank background or a transparent one, and it will give you a bit of creative advice when uploading those assets. If Google, if smart display campaigns are setting the bid, they're setting the targeting, and they're doing all of that, this to me seems like the obvious place where you as a marketeer can get an edge, where you can focus on the messaging and think about your audience. Your customer better than us, and so think about what resonates most with them, and you can tinker around it. What we would ask is for maximum performance for your smart display campaign is to give it as many creative options as possible, because that's the whole point. It's trialing, it's testing, it's seeing what works. Yeah. So give it multiple headlines, multiple descriptions, multiple images, and if you're uploading your own, again, at least 10 ads to upload, because then we can rotate and see. It's just about giving it flexibility.
Yeah, it's like before, you don't want one static ad showing. How do you know another ad? You need to experiment. You need the machine to understand which is the best possible ad and what needs to be served. So 5+ ads, it may take a little bit of work, but you'll see the benefits long term.
And so moving on there, some people who have adopted it already, a couple of case studies here for you folks. And we haven't just put these in for any old reasons, because they raise some really valid and interesting points about how best to set up and operate a smart display campaign. The first one's from India, ClearTrip. They're an online travel company there. And a couple of things that jump out at me as really interesting. One, we spoke about the creatives there, but the way they inform their creatives and the way they went about setting it up is looking at their search campaigns. They looked at which headlines, which descriptions typically works really well, and then recycled those in display. Really nice use of that. We spoke about campaign budgets. We'll touch on our best practices in a bit, but one of the really important things is to give it a big enough budget so that your target CPA doesn't hold it back. So 50 times the target CPA is what ClearTrip India went for. We had advised 20 times the target CPA as a good budget size, just to give it that flexibility in learning. And now, obviously, the thing you get drawn to on this slide is the performance stats. The CPA of this smart display campaign was better than their dynamic remarketing. It was lower than their generic search. Don't expect that, guys. I would say this is a phenomenal case. So just to set expectations, expect it to perform as well
as the dynamic remarketing, but
I'd say as well as your mid-funnel GDN stuff.
Yeah.
And over time, possibly better than your remarketing.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Let's set expectations. And now you were looking into another case study there as well. What was this one?
Yeah, Trivago. Like, you think of Trivago, it's 1.4 billion users annually. It's a massive, massive brand. Business. And what's really great about this is obviously the results, and you're talking about 36%, which is nearly 16% higher conversion than the average, which we looked at. And again, that's a huge result. But what interests me really was that it had 25,000 tailored ads across 55 different countries. And if you think about, as we were talking about earlier, about possibly an export option of going into a country that you might know, that you might have much information on, it is a good solution for that.
I think that's really interesting. If you've got a translated website, why don't look to export? We know if you're a UK advertiser at the moment, that the sterling's weak. We know there's options in Western Europe. This could be a really interesting way to dip your toe in the water to see if there's an appetite there for your products or wherever it is you sell. So,
two really good examples. I think they are two big brands, but I think this is a perfect solution as well for smaller advertisers who may have used display in the past. I remember bringing up that third slide that you brought up, Hughie, with all that confusion, and I think a lot of that would have been done at the start, but this is a perfect solution for small advertisers as well.
And so, what are Mick's top tips? What are your best practices to adhere to? What would you really advise?
Well, starting at the top, and I think this is the most basic when I would have started working in Google in terms of the setup and understanding that you must know what you're doing. You must know how many conversions you're getting with that data. You can actually understand how you're performing on AdWords. And I think this is the exact same. Start with eligibility, look at your conversion tracking, make sure it's set up. And the reason we say it needs to be set up is because we need at least 50 conversions on your display network or 100 conversions on your search network. And that's just an understanding for the machine to understand how well it's working.
And if you don't have those, the campaign type won't show, you won't be allowed to.
No, exactly.
And so moving on there, we've spoken about this already. It's probably the thing that often people overlook or get rushed into ignoring, and it's the learning period. You've got to give it a minimum of 3 weeks to calibrate, to work out what targeting works best, to work out what user likes which creative. And so, as I said, Michael, I work with agencies, and a lot of time they have pressure within 2 weeks to show a client results or to say, we've spent this, got this, or these are the results this new campaign's delivered. You've got to set expectations, got to allow for a learning period just to let the whole system calibrate.
Yeah.
And so jumping off that, setting your daily budget, we've touched on this already, 20 times your target CPA bid, ideally. Can be a bit lower, but again, for maximum performance, you need that room to experiment a little bit. And then setting your target CPA. And these are pretty important ones to bear in mind. It comes back to the point about setting expectations.
Yeah.
And so there's 3 things really. One option, you can set your target CPA similar to your other mid-funnel GDN campaigns. Now, if you aren't doing any mid-funnel targeting GDN, then you can go for option B, which is set your target CPA at 20 to 30% higher than your display remarketing. So again, maybe in time you can bring it down to similar levels of your display remarketing, but just give it that option at the moment. And then finally, if you're not doing any GDN whatsoever, and this is your first time into the display network, then look at your search campaigns, generic search, and say, right, let's set the target CPA 50% higher just to begin with.
Yeah.
And so moving on, you've touched on this already, but
again, it's back to the setup part.
Yeah.
2 of the major signals in it are similar audiences and your remarketing list, and they're probably the most primary, most important audiences, because these are people who are on your website, they have shown intent, or they're people who are similar to the people who have shown intent. So get the basic setup in terms of make sure that you have a site-wide remarketing tag, make sure the user lists are segregated or set up properly, and therefore you're giving the campaign the best possible chance to perform as well as it can.
Completely. And it's worth actually mentioning there, folks, it can be AdWords or analytics audience lists that you have set up.
True.
And the final point, and I guess possibly the most important, is ongoing optimization. We say set and forget, but it's not really plug and play. You have to go back, review how the campaign's working. Maybe you're adjusting the target CPA. And if you do, bring it up or down in increments of 10%. If you do vast, rapid increment changes and halve it by 50% for the weekend, that's not going to work, and it's going to set the machine back to day one of learning.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I guess that it comes full circle to the creative. If we're doing the automation, then the creative's got to be king. And really, as marketeers, that's somewhere we can get our teeth into and have a look at. One of my favorite advertising gurus is David Tross. If you haven't gone on his blog, have a read of it. But I think he estimates that about 90% of display advertising is forgotten. And so really, the challenge then for you guys as marketeers is how to make sure that the creative we run here is remembered, is impactful, and resonates. And so, folks, that is the Smart Display Campaign, SDCs. Sounds like something you might catch on a night out in Mayo, Mick. But without further ado, that has been the automation series. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess if we were to give a message here, there'd be a couple. In terms of smart bidding, dynamic search ads, smart display campaigns, it's simplicity, performance, and it's control. And really, from us, it's a challenge to you as well, to go out, to experiment, to try these things, and to realize that Google is moving this way in terms of our product focus and priorities. And really, for you as advertisers, it's a challenge for you to get on board and to see what works for you as well. But in the meantime, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, folks. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hope it was useful. All the best.